Just one word, you calm the storm that surrounds me. Just one word, the darkness has to retreat. Just one touch, I feel the presence of heaven. Just one touch, my eyes were open to see. My heart can't help but believe. There's nothing that our God can't do. There's not a mountain that He can move. Oh, praise the name that makes a way. There's nothing that our God can't do. Oh, just one word, you heal what's broken inside me. Just one word, and you revive every dream. Just one touch, I feel the power of heaven. Just one touch, my eyes are open to see. My heart can't help but believe. There's nothing that our God can't do. There's not a mountain that He can move. Oh, praise the name that makes a way. There's nothing that our God can't do. Oh, there's nothing that our God can't do. There's not a prison wall He can't break through. Oh, praise the name that makes a way. There's nothing that our God can't do. Oh. I will believe for greater things. There's no power like the power of Jesus. Let faith arise, let all agree. There's no power like the power of Jesus. I will believe for greater things. There's no power like the power of Jesus. Let faith arise, let all agree. There's no power like the power of Jesus. I will believe for greater things. There's no power like the power of Jesus. Let faith arise, let all agree. There's no power like His power. There's nothing that our God can't do. There's not a mountain that He can move. Oh, praise the name that makes a way. There's nothing that our God can't do. Oh, there's nothing that our God can't do. There's not a prison wall He can't break through. Oh, praise the name that makes a way. There's nothing that our God can't do. Oh,
today. If you can, scooch to the middle a little bit. I know we have a good amount of seats left, but just in case there's someone who comes in who may not want to walk all the way up to the front, if you have space, if you'll just slide into the middle. Thank you.
If the Lord has brought you through the fire, right into a
Hey, before we go forward with the rest of the service, maybe we could just take a minute to give God some praise this morning. Like if anything, sure. And if you have thought of anything, you've been reminded of anything in which you say, you know, the Lord's been really good to me. And I've had a few moments this past week where I go, man, God, you've been so kind, you know, with my family or our friendships. Or I had some specific moments this week where I go, okay, God, thank you once again for your grace, or just reminding me that you have really good plans for me. And I don't really know what all of them are, but there's just these good moments where God in his kindness just kind of drops that in on you, and you should respond by going, oh, man, God's been really good to me. And I got a call from our youngest grandson, only grandson, Ellis. He's about to turn 1, and he called me this week just to tell me he could say the word basketball hoop. It's like, this is great, you know, thank you, God, yeah. And got a call from Skylar, who's about to be 3, just so she could say, I want to come to your house. I'm like, that's awesome, tell your parents, make it happen, let's go, you know. But I don't know if we could take just 10 seconds this morning and just where you are, just if the Lord has been good to you, could we just offer that up to him, and then I'll pray for us? God, this morning as we just say the things this morning that we might be grateful for, or the ways in which you've been good to us, we're just rehearsing our gratitude, and we're just so grateful for that. And so, God, through our worship today, through our prayers, through even our conversations today, may we just be reminded how good you've been to us. We're going to pray this in your name today. Amen. Amen. You can have a seat. Awesome. Hey, I want to just give you a couple quick things, really just about the church as well, and the way that the Lord has been good to us. And a couple things real quickly. One is preschool. You know, we started this preschool last year. We really fast-tracked it and did it in basically a month. And we had 30 kids who were part of our preschool last year, and then I think it grew to 32 in this semester. And so 5 of those kids are graduating or moving away, so 27 re-enrolled. And then we've added 26 new students to the fall. So we literally doubled the size of our preschool, and I think there's room for a few more to jump in there, yeah. Now, these next couple of weeks, as we get towards the end of school and people are going to be hit and miss, this may not compute for you, but last weekend was actually the most people we've ever had here on a weekend that wasn't Christmas or Easter, okay? So the most people came through our doors, yeah. But I'm about to test how excited you are about this. We were like one strong Navy family away from having 350 kids back in our kids ministry last weekend. And so that's a lot of kids, and that's great to celebrate. I know Heidi would appreciate your celebration by signing up to serve. So that's one thing you could do back there. But it's just, you know, it's just been a lot of fun around here recently, and we just kind of celebrate, and, you know, God's been good to us in that regard. Some of you have noticed that we started clearing, well, we cleared it a long time ago, but we started converting a grass lot back there into a parking lot so we can actually have more spots for people. And as you guys are inviting your friends and family to come, and it just makes a better welcoming environment for everybody back there. You may not know this, but for a couple of years now, most of our staff and a lot of people who serve, especially on this team up here or here all day long, have been parking off-site and then having to walk over. So it was kind of fun this morning for me at whatever time I got here, 5:45, to just be able to walk across the street. That was amazing. But what happened was we thought that that thing was going to be finished by Easter. Obviously, it is not finished, and we're getting closer. But they ran into some problems, personal as well as work-related. And one of the issues, if you've been around for a while, you'll know that at one point we talked about building a building right back there. But come to find out that as we've cleared it and done a little bit more work on parking, it continues to sink. So we're throwing dirt on it, and I think we got it figured out now. So it would have been a bad place to put a building, by the way. But it's going to be great for parking, and when it's all done, we'll have new entrance and exit, and we'll be able to park about 500 cars here on the property, which would be great. And so we're really kind of taking a step forward because we know that eventually we got to make space for more of everything around here. So that won't be a surprise to you when that happens in the future. But let me just offer it to you as a moment of generosity, because some of you really get excited about things like parking and others of you don't really care. But what started out as about 100,000 plus projects are going to turn into about 150. Now, the great thing is that you all have given for a long time well, so we have that money and we're able to do it. But it's a little unexpected. And so my challenge would not be just somebody to kind of cover the price of the increase and all that. It would just encourage you to maybe consider, if you're generous around here and you practice giving, maybe it's just a good reminder to go towards recurring giving. And because when you do recurring giving, we kind of have an idea of what to expect, and it's a little bit easier to plan around here. So I made it real easy on you today, because if you utilize the device on the back of your chair, if you tap it with your phone, it's going to take you directly to generosity. So I wanted to eliminate any confusion for you. Awesome. Shall we go forward and finish sex ed? Who's excited about that? Okay, exciting. Well, this past week after Mother's Day, I got so many texts. Chris got a lot of messages, a lot of people just saying thank you. And you've always been so encouraging to her every time she comes out here. And so maybe in another 10 months, we'll talk about doing it again, but let's give her some time to rest. But let me just say, actually, thank you to you all, for the way that you guys have been throughout the last several weeks, either just saying, hey, this has been so helpful, or thank you for stepping into this. But I know that while a lot of us are really excited about the fact that we've stepped into it, there's a whole lot of others of us who, it's been painful for a lot of us. And so all I asked you for the first week or so was, hey, could we just kind of sit in it, and could we kind of sit under it, and then just maybe see what God might do? And so you guys have done that, and so let me just say thank you. And so thank you for not shying away from the conversation, and I hope that we're on the path to healing. So we'll throw out the kids' warning one more time. This is really middle school and above, and so if you got a kid here, run to the back, because we've come to the climax of the series in Psalm chapter 32. I told some of you to pay attention. It's my one joke of the day. Come on, here we go. Psalm 32 is where we're going to be today. I've been holding on to that one since yesterday. I was like, I got to do that. So here we go, Psalm chapter 32. So I heard about a pastor by the name of Jean Leroux, and Jean Leroux went to visit a sex addiction group, and the evening he was there, someone stands up to share their story, and they always introduce themselves, and they start to kind of tell you what the experience was from the past week. And he starts in by saying, okay, listen, last week I was on my way home from work, and I passed a strip club, and I wanted to go in. And when he said that, a number of people in the room just raised their hands. And he thought, well, that's kind of weird, disruptive, why are you guys trying to ask questions in the middle of this man's talk? And so, the guy just kind of continues on and say, hey, listen, I parked in the parking lot, and then I actually walked inside. And again, a number of people just kind of raised their hand while he's telling the story. And then he said, he kind of recounted some of the things, number of decisions he made that particular evening, and again, a number of people raised their hands. And then he said, afterwards I walked out to my car and feeling guilt and shame, and I was sure that God couldn't love me. And at that point, every single person in the room actually raised their hand, and except John, okay? And so when it's all over, he's talking to the director going, listen, what's going on? This guy's up here just pouring his heart out, and people are raising their hands. What's happening? And the director says, well, listen, we only have one rule around here, and the rule is that we do not struggle alone. And so if you're actually in the room and you're listening to someone share their story, and you have struggled with something like that too, then you just have to raise your hand. And it's a way to say, hey, we're all in this together. And so I really think that I've seen it over the last couple of years that we're really kind of becoming those kind of people. I think we're becoming that kind of church, no matter what the issue, but especially regarding, what we're talking about in this series, that maybe we could just see a room full of people today with raised hands and not pointed fingers. That's really the goal in the end. Because we're going to show you a story here in a little bit that, most of the stories we show around here do, but I think this one just requires a little bit extra courage for them to tell. But I do think in the end it's going to be so very helpful for a lot of us. And, we tend to, at the end of, every baptism, we'll tend to applause. We'll give applause. And sometimes when we share a story of impact, the church involved in, we'll applaud. I think that's appropriate. And a lot of times after we tell a story like this one we'll tell today, we tend to applaud. And I think that you should do that. But maybe whether it's emotionally, or mentally, you could visually see yourself do it, maybe even physically, at the end of it, that we would all just kind of raise our hands and go, okay, yeah, me too. Because as I began several weeks ago, I think we all have some brokenness. And it comes in a variety of different ways. I mean, it was something we did, like it was our own choices. It was something that somebody else did to us, and it kind of landed on us. Some of us, our brokenness comes from the fact that someone gave us a really bad vision of what God's design was and what it could be. And here's what I want us to see today is that where we have brokenness, if we acknowledge it and confess it, we could actually break the power that it has in our life. But, okay, if we actually allow it to remain hidden, what grows there is actually shame, and then we don't experience the freedom God desires for us. So I want to go to Psalm chapter 32, written by a guy named David, shepherd boy David, David and Goliath, King David, maybe you know the guy. But he's writing it after one of his more infamous kind of moments in his life where he's had an affair with a woman by the name of Bathsheba. And we're not going to read it. I'm not going to go into great detail about it. We're actually going to cover this during our summer series in a few weeks. But, you know, it's at the time where David should be out to war, right? He should be out there hanging with his guys and leading the troops. And instead, he's stayed back. And one evening, he's up on the roof of the palace. And there's a lot of people who tend to believe, you know, that it's not accidental that David just goes up there and he's surprised by what he sees. Like a lot of people seem to think maybe he knew exactly what he'd find because he goes up on the rooftop and he sees a woman bathing. And apparently it's a very common practice in the day, right? And you leave some water on the roof. It warms up during the day. It creates a really nice, you know, warm bath in the evening for people. And kind of most people seem to know that. And so David lives in a palace. He gets up there. He's got this perspective on everything else that nobody else has. And I have a friend who says David literally had all the channels when he's up on the rooftop, okay? And so he sees this woman. He brings Bathsheba to the palace, sleeps with her. She becomes pregnant. And then David starts to scramble, okay? And he brings the husband. He decides the best course of action is to bring the husband home from battle and in hopes that he'll go home, maybe sleep with his wife. He doesn't, so David moves to another step of the plan, and he arranges for the husband to be on the front lines of the battle, and he's going to be killed in battle. And after that happens, you know, she moves to David's place, moves into the palace as his wife, and then collectively they go, whew, that was a close one, wasn't it? Except God sends someone to confront David, and David then experiences a lot of brokenness and a lot of confession, and it seems like in that moment he takes out his pen and he writes these words in Psalm 32, and he starts this way: how joyful is the one whose transgression is forgiven, whose sin is covered. Right? How joyful is a person whom the Lord does not charge with iniquity and in whose spirit is no deceit. He just starts from the very beginning. Okay, listen, if God has forgiven you, you have a lot of reasons for joy in your life, right? Like when your past isn't actually held against you and you find freedom, then, you know, you have reasons for joy. What David's going to do, though, is he's going to outline his journey to get there, and he's going to go backwards into the past a little bit, and he's going to recount the healing journey for us. But I want you to see how he starts right here, very direct. Okay, he literally says, okay, it was my sin that caused all this. And I would just point us to go back a couple of weeks where we've kind of been over this, where we've mentioned this phrase specific to what we're talking about in the scriptures, these two words, sexual immorality. And that's really just kind of a broad term, okay, for anything that's kind of, and everything outside of God's design. And we saw that design in Genesis 1 and 2. We saw Jesus affirm it in Matthew 19. We talked about it last week, 1 Corinthians 7, where Paul talks about these things, and they're all saying the same thing, okay? Man, woman, committed, loving, married, safe, secure relationship. David's adultery, clearly outside of that design. And so, you know, a lot of times, and self-included here, when we have a sin in our life, and rather than saying it's a sin, we'll say things like, you know, I made a mistake. I had a moment of indiscretion, or we might minimize it and rationalize it and blame other people. David just owns it, okay, from the very beginning. He goes, it was a sin. And especially sexual sin, there's really nothing like it. It's different than all others, right? It's like it's a sin we commit against God, but we commit it against other people, and we literally commit it against ourselves. So when we get to verse 3, David's going to walk us through how he did and didn't deal with the sexual sin, and he says this in verse 3. He says, I had a moment, a time where I was keeping it silent. And when I did that, my bones became brittle from my groaning all day long. Like for day and night, your hand, he's talking to God, was heavy on me. My strength was drained as in the summer's heat. And so the first thing I want you to see, David just talks about how he was covering and how he was hiding it. I think when David wrote these words, I think his plan that we would never be talking about it, okay, today. But he's like trying to keep this secret here, and you can see how deeply it's affecting him, like mentally and emotionally and physically and even spiritually, because when it's not admitted and dealt with, it's we recently watched Fight Club, okay? And we have a daughter now who has a whole list of movies that she says she was never allowed to watch growing up. And so now we're kind of going back and checking them off the list. And it just reminds me of, scenes from Fight Club where literally you are the one who just keeps punching yourself in the face. That's what David's describing here. And we learned this somewhere, and some of us, we feel like the best plan is, okay, if you struggle with something, then, okay, just keep it a secret and don't let people know. Just find some kind of a way to cover it. If you raised a middle school boy, you'll know what we went through with our son Jordan was there was a several-year period where people don't want to shower. I don't understand that. And the best plan was just to cover it with Axe body spray, okay? We used Old Spice back in the day, but that's it. Just, and for David, all the covering and hiding had an effect on him. And I want to show you, okay, what that tendency to kind of hide and cover, I want to show you where that comes from. And it's going to be like a little bit of a right turn, but we'll come back. But you got to go back to the beginning, okay, where God created Adam and Eve, and everything began so well, and everything's really perfect. And, you and I were actually made to be loved and to be known by God so that in the end we can freely love and know and even love each other this way. And it's just a simple sentence, Genesis 2:25. It just says that the man and his wife were both naked, but they felt no shame. Right? So you just kind of imagine this, like they walked around completely exposed, that's literally and figuratively, and they have no concerns about what they thought or how they felt or what they had done. There's no judgment from anyone else, right? They're fully exposed and known without the need to cover and hide and protect. See, in the beginning, there's absolutely no shame. And I want you to hold on to that for the next few minutes because it means that shame is actually an intruder. And then God gives them one instruction, okay? Listen, you got run of the place, do whatever you want to. Just one thing, okay? That tree right over there, don't go near that tree. Don't touch that one. Don't eat anything from that or you'll die. And I think that means physically and spiritually and relationally. So you jump down to chapter 3, verse 6. And Eve, it says, saw that the tree was beautiful and its fruit looked delicious, and she wanted the wisdom it would give her. And so she's going to buy the age-old lie that knowledge or this person or some kind of an experience is going to give me something I'm missing or what I'm looking for. So it says she took some of the fruit and ate it, and then she gave some to her husband who was with her, and he ate it too. At that moment, their eyes were opened and they suddenly felt shame at their nakedness. So they sewed fig leaves together to cover themselves. So I want you to see what's happening. Eve is deceived. She takes some. She hands it to Adam, who's standing there and doesn't intervene, and he does the same thing. Okay, it reminds me of a satirical article, I guess you would say, that I saw probably 2 years ago. I want to show you what the cover of it looks like. Here's the headline right here. Study finds 100% of men would eat any fruit given to them by a naked woman. Okay. And so it says, so they also conducted a study showing that 100% of women can be tricked by a talking snake. So they kind of, everybody's got a fault here, all right? And then it just kind of all falls apart, okay? And I want you to notice that we're only 7 verses removed from there was no shame until we just read they felt shame. And suddenly their eyes are opened and things don't feel right. And it's new and it's uncomfortable. And so everybody grab a leaf and cover yourself. That's the plan. Verse 8, the cool evening breezes are blowing. The man and his wife heard the Lord walking in the garden, so they hid from the Lord among the trees. And then God called to the man, where are you? And he, Adam, replied, I heard you walking in the garden, so I hid. I was afraid because I was naked. And so rather than turning to God, okay, they covered up with the leaves and then they hid too. And it's exactly what David just described to us. And it's what you and I have the tendency to do. See, shame always forces us to cover and then to hide. And we do it from God and then we do it from each other. And so when God comes around asking, hey, what happened here, y'all? You read the answer in 12. Adam replies, it was the woman you gave me who gave me the fruit, and then I ate it. And the Lord asked the woman, hey, what'd you do here? And she says, well, the serpent deceived me, and that's why I ate it. And so you see what's happening here, right? Adam passes off the blame and says, it's the woman. Let's not forget, you're the one who gave her to me, so he blames God for that one. Eve says, yeah, well, it was a serpent, and they're very tricky. And so instead of Adam jumping in and saying, I don't really know what happened, to be honest with you. Like, I should have stepped in. I knew this was wrong. I just froze. Instead of Eve going, oh, okay, well, let me just be honest and say, you know what, I knew that wasn't right, but I was looking for this, or I thought it would bring me. The result of covering and hiding is that there's always distance between people and God, and then there's a growing separation between us and other people. It's important to understand the difference between guilt and shame, though. Right? Guilt can be a very positive thing in our life, right? You do something wrong, you get that kind of uneasy feeling. You're like, okay, I know that was wrong, that was bad. The guilt is actually there to let you know that something is wrong and that you actually need to make a change. I mean, maybe at some point in the last couple of weeks, whether it's something we're talking about or the scriptures or God's kind of been speaking to you and you go, okay, that you feel some conviction. That's guilt, and that's okay. Guilt, becomes harmful when rather than choosing to make a correction or to come clean, we actually choose to cover and hide, and then that's where shame grows. And shame grows, and then it feeds off of lies and insecurities that we carry. So maybe think about it this way, okay? Guilt will mostly be about the things that we have done, and then shame will mostly be about who we are. Okay, I feel guilty because I did something wrong. I lied to my mom. But I feel shame because I'm not the person that my mom wanted me to be. See the difference? There's a certain fear, by the way, that always gets attached to shame. Brene Brown, researcher at the University of Houston, Google a TED Talk, it'd be amazing, spent 10 years studying vulnerability and authenticity and shame. She says this, shame is really easily understood as the fear of disconnection. And here's the question. Is there something about me that, if other people know it or see it, that I won't be worthy of connection? So what she's really saying is, shame comes with a question, and the question is, man, if people really knew me, would they still love me? And if they see me and what I've done or what's actually happened to me, then maybe they won't think of me the way that I want them to think of me. By the way, shame actually plays out a little bit differently, and this is generally speaking by gender. For women, shame is, do it all, do it perfectly, never let anybody see you stress or sweat. And it's these conflicting, competing, unattainable, expectations about who you're supposed to be. Shame for men really comes down to one thing, and it is do not be perceived to be weak. And if you don't have what it takes, then do everything you can to fake it. And so shame forces us to cover and hide so that no one knows. And unfortunately, when we cover and hide, we just stay in it. And we just kind of keep returning to it. And we go back to it over and over and over again. And the thing that was the sin, if we don't deal with it, is the thing that many of us will return to, strangely enough, to try to deal with the sin. Let me just continue to go down this track a little bit. I mean, the question is, well, why do I stay in an unwanted sexual sin? And I thought this was so helpful. I just kind of want to run through it rather quickly and then just tell you to buy the book, But this part's for free. And you can find this on our resource page. But when we say unwanted sexual sin, here's a quote from this book called Unwanted, where the author says that it's any sexual behavior that continues to persist in our lives despite our best efforts to change it. I'll show you what the book looks like here. I think if you look at it and you look at the title, that instantly we would go, oh, that looks like a book that's probably about how someone feels about me based on my experiences, and that's not what it's about at all. It is really unwanted, in the sense of the why. Like there's a why behind some of the things that we choose to do. I don't really want to be caught up in this, so why am I here? Because specifically, sexual behaviors don't happen out of thin air. So what the author actually shares are 6 core experiences from our life that kind of lead to unwanted sexual behavior. I'll tell you what they are real quickly. One's deprivation. I know it seems like sexuality is about self-indulgence, but beneath the surface, the roots of it are really deprivation. And and it's a perceived, let's say it that way, a perceived unmet need. And so we either believe that our needs are not important, or we will feel, okay, they are so important, and I need to be secretive about how I actually get that need met. If that's the case, then we're incredibly susceptible to unwanted sexual behavior. 2, escape, okay? It should make sense that a lot of us are looking to flee reality, right? And it can be because of failure, it can be because of a lack of motivation, it can be because of anxiety that we have. So let me just kind of disconnect from reality. And men in particular, like we resort to hiding and blaming, usually as a way of avoiding changing. Okay, seduction. It gets more fun. We're prone, he says, to create storylines, like a film director, okay, either from our sexual history or our sexual desire. And so the fantasy for a lot of people to actually pursue an affair is not a random event, okay? What drives that, okay, can actually indicate a place that's in desperate need of healing. For instance, 43% of men who have pursued or at least thought about, fantasized infidelity, have experienced childhood sexual abuse, are suffering from depression, and carry deep shame. 22% of women who have pursued or thought about, we've fantasized about infidelity, have perceived unmet needs, carry shame, and experience childhood sexual abuse. Futility. This is really for a lot of the guys, not only, but really the guys. Like the greater a man's futility, okay, the more likely he is to use and then increasingly use pornography. Meaning if you feel like the work that you do is meaningless, or you look back on your life and you just see failure after failure, or you're unmotivated, okay? Pornography is not an isolated struggle. It's a symptom of a larger issue of futility. The appeal of porn is precisely because it allows futility to disappear. Meaning, okay, if you lack purpose and motivation, very little of that is required. It's why we're drawn to watching other people, whether we're standing around, just watching life go on, or whether we watch pornography, or whether we watch sports, or whether we watch documentaries. Like nothing is literally required of me other than consuming what I'm watching. So I'm watching hockey playoffs right now, okay? No physical commitment is required of me right now, okay? I sit on the couch, I scroll social media with a cerveza. That's it. That's all I got to do. 5 and 6, I'll bring them together. Lust and anger go hand in hand. Typically, someone who struggles with lust is also battling unaddressed anger. And lust, we spent a lot of time on this a couple of weeks ago, but lust is really just like the strike of the match. Okay? It really needs anger to kind of start a wildfire. So if you want to do the really hard work here and dig much deeper into some of this stuff, if you want to find out why some of us are actually compelled to pursue sexual behavior, then find out what has made you so angry in your life. Like men, okay, who want to have power over women have the highest levels of shame. And they lack significant purpose and had a dad who's overwhelmingly strict. And what happens is it gives us this area of dominance in the middle of a life that we can hardly ever control. Okay? Strangely enough, women who actually seek out more aggressive, violent, degrading forms of pornography than men, and it seems like the reason might be, okay, men tend to pursue pornography to find power over their shame, okay? Women tend to pursue violent pornography to repeat their shame and harm. And so shame, it's a big thing. It grows and it feeds off of the lies and the insecurities that we carry, and it causes us to do what David just described, to cover and to hide. Here's how this plays out going forward in David's life, okay? There's something he's keeping a secret that's affecting him physically, emotionally, and spiritually. But you get to verse 5 and he says, okay, finally, or then I decided to acknowledge my sin to you. He's talking to God. I did not conceal it any longer, my iniquity. Okay, I decided to come clean with God, who already knows, by the way. And I said, okay, I will confess my transgressions to the Lord. Whatever metaphor you want to use. I'm pulling off the covers. I'm peeling back the layers. I'm moving from covering and hiding and bringing it into the open. So now he's moving to, okay, confess and uncover. And I would say, like, the last couple of weeks or even just in the last couple of minutes, like, if there's a thing that just kind of rises up inside of you and you know, when you think about this and you're like, man, that my deepest fears for that to be exposed, and well, your deepest fears are connected to your deepest shame. So it's growing kind of underneath our life, makes you feel like you're suffocating, and, you know, we promised we would never tell. You know, listen, we break the hold of shame and fear by identifying it and then actually confessing it, literally uncovering it. And some of us don't realize that we've had shame in our life because it's just been hiding for so long. And we could spend a lot of time on these two questions. I'm just going to throw them in there and let God do what he wants to do with them. But maybe the fastest way to figure out where you have shame in your life is to answer, what have I done that I hope nobody ever finds out about? And what did someone do to me that I'm afraid for anyone to know? Now, there's two paths forward here for us. And one is, if your shame is a result of something you've done, then you need to confess it before God. Say, okay, well, what do you mean by confess it? Well, all sin is the result of me doing my thing my way without God, right? God says, okay, this is the way, and I go, no, thank you. I'll do it this way, and I'll do that. And as long as we're hiding and covering, it keeps us from the relationships that we were created for, primarily with God and then with other people. You say, well, how does it play out with other people? Well, a lot of times our sin comes out sideways. Okay, as frustration or anger, or we withdraw from other people. And so you might get help identifying this as well. If you're avoiding certain people, or you're critical of other people, or you find yourself being self-righteous about something. So that's the thing. If it's my sin, then I confess. There's certainly others of us who have deep shame in our lives that's not the result of something we did necessarily, it's something that was done to us. And the path I want to suggest forward is very much the same for all of us. Like, one of my favorite authors is a priest named Brennan Manning, passed away several years ago, struggled through his own issues with alcoholism, okay? He wrote a final book before he passed away, and probably one of the most profound quotes of his, I'll just read it for you. He says, "My experience has shown me that I all too often tend to deny that which lies behind, but as I still believe, that which is denied cannot be healed." So let me put it into a phrase that I'm pretty sure I've used here before, but it might give you some good handles to walk out of here with today. Just, 6 words. And here's kind of the takeaway today. That there's no healing in hiding. Okay, there's no healing in hiding. Like, as long as we continue to cover it and to hide it, whether our sin or the shame caused by others, we can never actually move on towards healing and freedom. Like, God cannot transform the person that we're pretending to be. Okay, there has to be some honest admission here, okay? And get honest with God about it. And I think it's probably way past time for some of us just to simply admit the pain that we've carried in our life. Or to just get really honest about the turmoil, like the internal turmoil that is causing us, or the damage that we've maybe done to other people, and kind of the hurt that we've left behind. And some of us have actually never gone through the process of confession, like actually asking God for forgiveness about something very specific. Listen, I've talked to people for 3 decades about this kind of thing, and a lot of times, especially with sexual sin, we usually just end up saying, okay, well, that was something that happened a long time ago. Or, everything's actually turned out okay in the end here. Or what's the point of actually going back now? Well, the point of going back now is without confession and uncovering, we won't actually allow God to forgive and then heal. And so David finds the courage, okay, to come clean before God, where he stopped trying to hide, and then he confessed. And you see the rest of it. I left out verse 5. It just finishes with, and, okay, you forgave the guilt of my sin. Okay, he's walked through the progression of hiding and covering to confessing and uncovering to now finding forgiveness and freedom. A number of times right here in the few short sentences, David talks about God's forgiveness. Let me just take you back to where I started, verse 1 and 2. Listen, he says, how joyful is the one whose transgression is forgiven, whose sin is covered. Okay, he's talking about 2 special things right there. One, he's talking about lifting a heavy burden and having someone carry it away for you. hey, you actually don't got this, okay, so give it up. And then he says his sin is covered, okay, meaning it's completely removed from sight. Like it's not a check mark next to it. It's not a line through it. Like it's completely deleted. And then he goes on, how joyful is a person whom the Lord does not charge with iniquity, whose spirit, okay, there's no deceit. In other words, you're not going to be charged for this one, or it's not going to be counted or actually held against you here. Like what a cool call that is. I don't know if anybody's ever got it, where someone just calls you and goes, hey, listen, I just want you to know that you owe a lot. We both know that, but you know what? We're not going to be collecting anymore. I don't know if you ever got a call like that, but literally that's like God's call to you. Hey, listen, we both know it, okay? You owe a lot right here, but I'm here to tell you the good news is we're not going to be collecting anymore, okay? And David's able to roll all this out. I mean, in verse 5, we just read it, you forgave the guilt of my sin. And I want you to pay really close attention to this right here. He says, okay, God forgives the sin, yes, but he also forgives the guilt. I'm just kind of taking some notes about this week and thinking about it and rereading through some of this, and I was like, I actually had some excitement that some of us could actually see, okay, that not only can you be forgiven, but the guilt that we sometimes carry around and that we actually sometimes use to punish ourselves with could actually be removed, okay, when we go through confession and uncovering. See, I don't know how this happens. I sure hope we haven't contributed to any of it, but there's a lot of us who we start walking with Jesus and we have heard or we think that, okay, Jesus paid for the sins, okay, and I got it and I'm all in on that one, but somehow going forward and in some way I'm on a payment plan. Like afterward, I got to be the one to deal with my sins. It's like, okay, yes, Jesus gave me a one-time clean bill of health, right? And we were even baptized, but for some reason, we got this idea that after that, it's up to me to actually do the rest. It doesn't work that way. It does not work that way. The mending, okay, if we want to call it the fixing, the healing, is never up to you. Like, it's never up to me. The only thing that's up to me and you is to actually take it and bring it into the light. The uncovering, okay, that's up to me. The being honest about it is up to me. But the work of forgiveness and transformation and restoration can only be done by God. And so I want you to sit through this story today and, again, just required a tremendous amount of courage to tell. I do think in the end it's going to be very, very helpful for a lot of us. So check this out.
Hi, I'm Kevin. This is my wife, Heidi, and this is our story.
December 1st, 2022, we were laying in bed looking at Kevin's phone, and we had been talking about taking our teenage kids on a missions trip. And so I had sent Kevin a link to a site concerning some foreign missions trip. And we were looking at his phone and talking about it. And throughout the conversation, somehow the phone ended up in my hand. And I minimized the tab while we were talking and swiped away. And there was revealed to me some pornography.
The guilt and the shame was horrific.
I didn't handle it well. I felt like in that moment, I didn't know who I was married to, and I just said, leave, you have to leave now. My reaction was really profound. Like, I did not have grace for Kevin at the moment of discovery, and I was confused, angry. It was a very low point in my life, and why that experience, I think, was so profound, or why I know it was so profound, is because when we were first married, it was a small wedding. He had just started a position with a federal agency, and we got married before we moved across the state for him to take the job. The next day, we were loading things into a moving truck, and Kevin's phone was sitting on the kitchen counter, and he was taking some boxes out to the moving truck, and his phone was ringing. And I'm really not the type to pick up somebody's phone, but just something told me to pick it up, and I did. And on the other end of the phone was a young lady.
I arrived to our relationship with a lot of sexual brokenness, with a lot of shame, with a lot of pain from my past, from my childhood, from my military trauma that I had never dealt with. And so I was using pornography and lustful behavior, promiscuity to deal with that pain. So through that pain, I thought getting engaged and getting married would heal my problems, my addiction, my lustful nature, and my interaction with women. It did not. And so at a bar one night, I met a lady and proceeded to be physical with her for the next few months, again, while Heidi and I were engaged.
Kevin first denied it and then came to admit, yeah, he had been seeing somebody while he was away. We were in this crappy rent house, and I think like within the next day or two, he had his first mission trip out of town. And here I was left by myself. And that was so hard because I really felt even more betrayed by God in a lot of respects in that moment. Fast forward to December 1st, 2022, that moment, it brought me right back to me on my hands and knees in that crappy rent house. As confusing as it was, and how I didn't understand how I had, I felt like I had fasted and I had prayed, and like this was the guy that I prayed about, and I was always so confused. And then my counselor told me one day that was really profound for me. She said, Heidi, you did all that. Don't you think God had the power to stop it from happening, from stopping you from getting married, from revealing, don't you think God had the power to reveal it prior to you saying I do? And I said, yeah, of course. And she was like, maybe think about this as the journey that God has you on for a reason. And that was so freeing. My relationship with Jesus is completely transformed. And he's so present. And it's healing me at a different level.
So after discovery and the months and years that followed, I knew I couldn't white knuckle this addiction, and I knew I had to find the root. And through lots of counseling and lots of groups, I found out that childhood trauma, military trauma, and a traumatic vehicle accident that I was in 2018, I had to come to grips and heal from those and release the shame that was consuming me from those instances. And then I could move forward in my recovery. And the way I see it, what I call it, is chasing after Jesus every day, making him the focus of everything I do. I feel like I've learned so much about this addiction through this trying time. And I look forward to sharing my story and helping others with their struggles in this area. And so, yeah, all those years of lying to you, my fear was you would leave me. But the truth is, getting it into the light only brought us closer.
All morning long, I've looked for one person who is going to raise their hand, but applause will work as well. Right now, some of you need a group of people who you can travel through this with, okay, who have gone through the same thing and that you can trust, that you can learn from, that you can be accountable to. I told you in week number 1, we're gonna figure out a solution to do that. And so Kevin and Heidi are going to be leading 2 separate groups, a men's group and a women's group called Sexual Integrity 101. And so it can be any number of the things we've talked about the last few weeks, okay? You've heard a lot of their story there. There's increasingly larger numbers and more people who contact me about pornography. And Kevin's usually my first call. And he's walked alongside many people in our church, and now Heidi is doing the same. And so I think, like, if you're looking for a place like that where you can explore that and learn about that, the device on the back of the chair will take you directly to groups right now, and all the groups. So we're getting ready to start all summer groups, and so, just tell somebody you're looking at Rooted if you want. That's fine. And but it'll take you to all the groups, financial peace, but also sexual integrity 101. So I want to wrap up today by just inviting you to prayer, okay? A group of, there's a story in Jesus' life, a group of religious people brought a woman to Jesus, and they had just happened to catch her in the act of adultery. And we don't have time to discuss that, but I assume that you do that the way they do it on the show Cheaters. You got to do some surveillance, okay? You got to set somebody up. But they catch her, and, the punishment by law is, you stone her to death. And so they're going to use her as a pawn. They're going to bring her to Jesus and offer a trick question. Jesus, what do you think we ought to do with this woman? We caught her in the act of adultery. And if he says, well, let her go, then, okay, well, he doesn't follow the law, and he's not doing what God says. If he, says stone her, then he's cold and heartless like everybody else, okay? So that's the question, and Jesus says, all right, listen, here's what we're going to do. The one of you standing in the circle who's without any sin, then you kind of take the first shot. You throw the first stone. And it just tells us that one by one, they all kind of started dropping their rocks, and they walked away until it's just Jesus standing here with this woman. And so, Jesus never brought things to the surface in a person's life to actually cause more harm and shame. He always brought those things to the surface so that he could actually heal people. And Jesus goes, okay, no one's here to condemn you. Okay, then I don't either. Which is amazing, because the one person of everyone who had the authority to maybe make a judgment says, okay, I'm not going to do that either. And so his tenderness and his compassion and his grace just like outshined everything else. But that's not the end of the encounter. He's like, oh, okay, listen, one more thing before you go, okay? Listen, you leave here, but you got to stop this. Okay, you can go now, but from now on, listen, don't do this sin anymore. And so I love that moment of Jesus where it's like, I love you, I forgive you. You got to make a change. Okay, go and sin no more. Go and confess. Go and find an accountable friend. Go join a group. Go and see a counselor, okay? Go make a change. Go ask God to actually transform you. Because the shame is that thing in our life that says, okay, the story's over, like you're probably over, and then grace and Jesus comes in to say, actually, it's not finished, okay? I'm not going to give up on this one. And so I just want you to hear one more time from me today that your worth is not established by what you do or even what's actually been done to you. Like your worth is based on what Jesus has done for you. Okay? And so I want us to lean into that today, and I want to invite you to prayer. And here's what I want to do. I want to ask you to actually stand right now. And we're going to close with our usual worship song, but before you're tempted to run out and beat people to wherever it is that we're going, I just want to invite you to prayer. And it may be standing where you are to do that, but I really want to encourage you to maybe come down. There's going to be several people down here to maybe come down and let someone actually pray with you, even as a form of confession. Okay, people have been doing this all morning. You don't have to tell your whole story. We're not looking to do counseling in this moment. It's literally someone came down at the end of the first service. I said, hey, what's your name? He told me his name. Hey, what do you want me to pray? It was one sentence. That was it. And it's just to have somebody else to do that with you, maybe as an act of confession, maybe just to open up and uncover and let somebody else in on the story. But I would just ask you to think today, like what is it in your life that actually needs to be healed? Like what is it that you probably keep dragging around and letting it affect your other relationships? It's causing conflict and tension inside of you, and it's actually creating distance with God. That's the thing that needs to be healed today. And you could try to ignore it. You could be the one person who thinks that those rules don't apply to you. You could numb it. You could point the finger at other people. But maybe today we would just kind of uncover it and confess it and let God heal it. So God, today we just pray through these things. God, I thank you that each week we've sat under this and we've listened to it and we've done some looking inside. We've done some hard work. And so, God, today it's my prayer that we would actually, if needed, come clean. We would confess to you, maybe even to another person. God, I know that there are likely people all morning long who have been sitting next to each other, and we all know the thing, but nobody's saying the thing. But maybe today would be the day that we actually bring it to you and ask you to heal it, to do your transformative work in our life so we can be on the path towards freedom. God, today we do believe that that is what you offer us, grace, mercy, forgiveness. We're going to call on that today, believing that with a courageous first step in your direction, God, you will receive us, that you will embrace us. God, we know you promised to love us no matter what, and we're counting on that today. And so we're going to pray these things in your name today, in the name of Jesus. Amen.
I just want to speak the name of Jesus over every heart and every mind, 'cause I know there is peace within your presence. I speak Jesus. I just want to speak the name of Jesus till every dark addiction starts to break, declaring there is hope and there is freedom. I speak Jesus. Your name is power. Your name is healing. Your name is love. Break every stronghold. Shine through the shadows. Burn like a fire. I just want to speak the name of Jesus over fear and all anxiety, to every soul held captive by depression. I speak Jesus. Your name is power. Your name is healing. Your name is love. Break every stronghold. Shine through the shadows. Burn like a fire. Your name is power. Your name is healing. Your name is love. Break every stronghold. Shine through the shadows. Burn like a fire. Shout Jesus from the mountains, and Jesus in the streets, Jesus in the darkness over every enemy, and Jesus for my family. I'll speak the holy name, Jesus. Oh, shout Jesus from the mountain, Jesus in the streets, Jesus in the darkness over every enemy, and Jesus for my family. I speak the holy name, Jesus. just want to speak the name of Jesus over every heart and every mind. 'Cause I know there is peace within your presence. I speak Jesus. Shout Jesus from the mountains, and Jesus in the streets, and Jesus in the darkness over every enemy, and Jesus for my shout Jesus from the mountains, come on. Jesus in the streets, Jesus in the darkness over every enemy, Jesus for my family, I speak your holy name, Jesus. Shout Jesus from the mountains, and Jesus in the streets, Jesus in the darkness over every enemy, and Jesus for my family, I speak your holy name, Jesus.
Thank you so much for joining us today, but also just sticking through this series. We get lots of feedback, but for me, this one has brought a little bit more feedback. And I had a really cool conversation with somebody the other day, and she said, you know, I'm just so proud of our church for stepping into this topic, the topics that we've been covering over the last few weeks, that it really is kind of unprecedented because, and I identified with this, like growing up, didn't talk about certain things at home, didn't talk about it in church. And when that happens, sometimes we tend to put it in the dark if we struggle with certain things. And so our prayer for you is that you walk through these doors stepping into the light. When you step into the light and you accept that love and that grace from Jesus, your life can change. Hope can be found, healing can happen, and your lives can be truly transformed. And the biggest way, like Heidi and Kevin said, is your relationship with Jesus can grow in ways you've never imagined. And so we know that that's not easy, that there's a lot that's been stirred up over the last few weeks. And so again, if you didn't come up for prayer and you would like to, please come up and somebody would love to pray with you. If you want to discuss something outside of today, feel free to jump on our website and you can find any of our email addresses and reach out, and we'd love to talk to you. On a lighter note, everything about kids is about to happen because it's summertime. Next Sunday is Gen Z Takeover. It's going to be Christ Kids in chaos everywhere, okay? The students and the kids are going to be serving in all kinds of capacities, and it's going to be a super fun day. You don't want to miss out on that. And then also we have some camps coming up. The first camp is Connect Camps, which is going to be June 9th through the 13th. And if you're unfamiliar with that, that's our elementary camp. The Connect Camps team will be on site here with their staff, and we get to come alongside of them and support them as they are leading our kids through worship and the lessons. So we need your help. We need 80 more volunteers to sign up to help that week. 80, not 8, okay? So get ready. Get out your phones. There's a green card that you were handed when you came in, has a QR code on it, and you can scan that. It'll go to a very simple form where you can sign up to help during that week. It can be 1 hour that week. It can be every day that week. Lots of different ways you can serve. You can be with kids. You can not be with kids. You can be in the back preparing snacks. Take a step into it, though, and say yes. None of that would be possible without your generosity, and so we just want to say thank you. Thank you for your generosity and the way that you give back so that cool things like that can happen with our next generation. So if you came prepared to give, you can do that on the app, on the website, or you can give it to an usher as you leave. But we hope you have a fantastic week, and we look forward to seeing you next Sunday for Gen Z Takeover.